7 Habits no 1 sees from Tibetan Yogis to control hunger without willpower. Sarah stood in her kitchen at 10:47 p.m. Phone in one hand, the refrigerator door open with the other. The light spilled across her face, pale, tired, the kind of exhaustion that 8 hours of sleep never seemed to touch. She wasn't hungry, not really. Her stomach wasn't empty, but something inside her was. She reached for the cheese, then the crackers, then the leftover pasta, building a plate without thought, without pause. This was the 4th time tonight. The 3rd diet applicative on her phone. The 100th promise to herself that tomorrow would be different. At 38, Sarah had tried everything: keto, intermittent fasting, meal prep, calorie counting, gym memberships that lasted 3 enthusiastic weeks before the Cesar alarm became unbearable. She had willpower in meetings, willpower in presentations, willpower to manage a team of 12 at a marketing firm that demanded her attention 16 hours a day. But at night, alone in her apartment with the blue glow of her laptop still burning her retinas, willpower dissolved like sugar in hot water. Her doctor had been kind but direct at the last visit. Your cortisol is high. Your blood sugar is creeping up. You are pre-diabetic. Sarah, we need to take this seriously. She had nodded, taken the printout, pinned it to her refrigerator, looked at it every morning, felt the shame every evening when her hand reached for food she didn't need. The documentary appeared in her feed by accident, or maybe the algorithm knew her better than she knew herself. The Last Yogis of Tibet, Masters of Mind and Hunger. She almost scrolled past. But the thumbnail showed an elderly monk sitting cross-legged in a stone monastery, a simple copper bowl in his hands, his face radiating a calm Sarah didn't remember ever feeling. She clicked. For 40 minutes, she watched footage of Tibetan Yogis living at 14 feet, eating twice a day, practicing breathing rituals before meals, sitting in silence with their food. No calorie aplicativos, no guilt, no war with their bodies. They spoke of hunger as a wave, not a command. They described food as information, not enemy. One monk, 73 years old with steady hands and clear eyes, held up a copper bowl of butter tea and said through a translator, "We do not fight the body. We listen, we befriend." Sarah paused the video. Hualdi watched his hands cradle the bowl again. The next morning, on her way to work, she detoured. 3 blocks from her office was a small Tibetan tea house she had passed 100 chimis without entering. This sign was faded, lost a corner. Inside, the air smelled of cardamom and something she didn't name. An older Tibetan woman stood behind a counter lined with copper bowls, prayer flags, and small bags of tea. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her accent thick but warm. I saw something about butter tea. I wanted to try." The woman smiled, a knowing smile that felt like recognition. She poured steaming golden liquid into a small copper bowl, slid each across the counter. "Drink slowly, taste everything." Sarah wrapped her hands around the bowl. It was warm, solid. The tea was salty, rich, strange. She sipped. It tasted like nothing she had ever chosen before, but something in her chest loosened. "You are hungry all the time," the woman said. It wasn't a question. Sarah looked up, startled. "I can see it. Not in your stomach. In your nervous system. You eat to calm the noisy inside." Sarah's throat tightened. She nodded. The woman reached beneath the counter and pulled out a second copper bowl, smaller, simpler. "Take this. Was eat every night. Before you eat, breathe 3 chimes. Feel the weight of the bowl. Then eat. That's it. That is enough to begin." Sarah left with the bowl wrapped in brown paper. At her desk, between emails and client calls, she unwrapped it, ran her fingers along the smooth copper hem. It felt absurdly simple. A bowl. Breathing. How could this possibly change anything? But that night, before reaching into the refrigerator, she paused, filled the copper bowl with warm water and a pinch of salt, just to hold something, sat at her small kitchen table, breathed. 3 long, slow breaths. Her hand didn't reach for the cheese. Not yet. If you've ever felt tired even after a full night of sleep or frustrated with diets that don't last, tell us in the comments which part of this story feels familiar and stay with us for the next chapters. The first week, Sarah felt ridiculous. She sat at her kitchen table every night with the copper bowl, breathing beef meals like the Tibetan woman had instructed. 3 breaths, feel the weight, then eat. Her co-worker, Marcos, caught her one afternoon at her desk, eyes closed, hands resting on her stomach. "You meditating now?" he asked, half joking, half concerned. "Next you'll be burning incense and chanting." "Just breathing," Sarah said, opening her eyes. "You know what helps with stress. The gym." "Me telling you, if you just pushed harder, me not trying to push harder," she interrupted, surprising herself. "Me trying something else." Marcos shrugged, walked away. But Sarah noticed the tightness in his shoulders, the 4th coffee cup of the day in his hand, the way he scrolled through his phone even while chewing his sandwich. He was fighting too, just a different war. That night, Sarah tried eating in silence, no phone, no laptop, no transmissão vertical, just her, the copper bowl filled with warm miso soup, and the sound of her own swallowing. It was excruciating. Within 2 minutes, her hand reached for her phone. She stopped herself, breathed, continued eating. The soup tasted different, saltier, heartier. She noticed the texture of the tofu, the slight bitterness of the seaweed. Is something else a moment, maybe 30 seconds long, where her mind stopped racing and her jaw cliched. The Tibetan woman at Lhasa corner had given her a small book, a photocopied collection of teachings about hunger and awareness. Sarah read each slowly, a few pages each night. One passage stayed with her. Hunger is not the enemy, hunger is the teacher. When you fight the teacher, you learn nothing. She started keeping a journal. Not a food diary, she'd tried those. This was different. She wrote about when hunger appeared, what it felt like, what her mind was doing. Thursday at 3 p.m. Hungry but not empty. Anxious about presentation, craving salt. Friday at 12 p.m. Wanted ice cream. Noticed my jaw was tight. Breathed instead. Hunger faded. By the second week, something shifted. Not dramatic. Not the kind of shift she could photograph or post. But she woke up one morning and realized she'd slept through the night without waking to check her phone. Her stomach felt quieter. Her mother called on Sunday. "You sound different," she said. "Different how?" "I don't know." Sarah glanced at the copper bowl on her counter, the small ritual that had somehow become the most stable part of her day. "Maybe I am, but wasn't the same as easy." On Tuesday, her boss dumped a last-minute project on her desk due Friday, requiring nights. The old pattern kicked in immediately. Stress, then hunger, then the fridge at midnight. Sarah stood in her kitchen, staring at the leftover pizza, her body vibrating with exhaustion and cortisol. She picked up the copper bowl, filled it with hot water, sat down, 3 breaths. The hunger didn't disappear. But something about holding the bowl, feeling its weight, watching the steam rise, it created a space between the craving and the action. A pause. In that pause, she could ask, am I hungry, or am I wired? She was wired. She drank the water slowly, then went to her bed. The next morning, Marcos found her in the break room making tea instead of grabbing her usual sugar and latte. "You here really doing this whole Z thing, huh?" "It's not Z," Sarah said. "It's Tibetan." "It's just breathing and paying attention. Same thing." "It's not." He laughed, but there was an edge to it. "You'll be back on the diet train in a month. Everyone is." Sarah didn't argue. She just poured her tea, held the warm mug in her hands, and realized she didn't need him to believe her. For the first 2 years, she wasn't performing change for an audience. She was just changing. That night, she ate dinner in silence again. The copper bowl sat beside her plate, a quiet anchor. And when hunger knocked at 10 p.m., she met it with curiosity instead of surrender. Not every time, but more than before. 3 weeks later, Sarah sat in her doctor's office, the same office where she received the pre-diabetes warning 3 months ago. Dr. Chen scrolled through her chart, frowning slightly. "Your fasting glucose is low," she said, looking up. "Not dramatically, but it's down. And your cortisol markers are better." "What changed?" Sarah hesitated. How could she explain that she'd stopped fighting her hunger and started breathing before meals? That she ate from a copper bowl a Tibetan woman had given her? That she'd traded willpower for awareness? "I'm eating slower," Sarah said finally. "Paying attention, less stress eating." Dr. Chen nodded, satisfied. "Good. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Let us recheck in 3 months." Sarah left with the printout in her hand, but this chimney didn't feel like evidence of failure. It felt like a map showing movement in the right direction. That weekend, her sister hosted Thanksgiving dinner. Sarah arrived with her copper bowl tucked in her bag, a smaller curry what she knew would be a storm of food, opinions, and family dynamics. The table was chaos. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie, wine flowing freely. Her sister, Emma, gestured at the spread. "I made your favorite, the green bean casserole you always loved." Sarah looked at the casserole, swimming in cream and fried onions. Her stomach didn't want it, but her sister hopeful faceted. "I'm going to start with smaller portions," Sarah said, reaching for her copper bowl instead of the large dinner plate. "Just trying something new." Emma fell. "You here on another diet?" "I'm not on a diet." "Then why are you bringing your own bowl to Thanksgiving?" Sarah's father catchy. "Let her eat however she wants, Emma. I'm just saying, it's Thanksgiving. It's one day. You don't have to be so extreme. The word landed heavy. Sarah looked around the table, everyone piling food on oversized plates, reaching for seconds before finishing firsts, half watching football while eating, phones out, conversations fragmented. And she was extreme for wanting to eat slowly from a smaller bowl. She filled the copper bowl, a small portion of turkey, vegetables, a spoonful of stuffing, sat quietly while the room buzzed around her, chewed slowly, tasted everything. And when her sister passed the pie, Sarah smiled and said, "Not right now. Maybe later." Emma stared. "You here refusing pie?" "I'm not refusing. I'm just full." Her mother touched her arm later, while Sarah washed dishes. "You do look different. Lighter somehow. Not your weight, your energy." Sarah dried the copper bowl, running the towel along its hem. "I feel different." "What are you doing?" "Learning to listen instead of fight." Her mother didn't understand, but she nodded anyway, and that felt like enough. Back home that night, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with the copper bowl filled with warm water and a slice of lemon. The Tibetan woman had called this evening water a ritual to close the eating window, signal to the body that nourishment was done for the day. Sarah breathed 3 long breaths, felt the warmth in her hands. The apartment was quiet. No transmissão vertical. No scrolling. Just her in the bowl and the soft sound of the heater clicking on. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcos. "How do you survive Thanksgiving? I ate so much I can't move." She smiled, typed back, "I survived by actually tasting my food." No response. That was okay. She was learning that her transformation didn't need witnesses. It needed repetition. The copper bowl every night. The 3 breaths. The pause. The awareness. These weren't the tools for weight loss or discipline. They were invitations to come back to her body instead of abandoning it. The Tibetan teaching she did read that morning returned to her. The yogi does not conquer hunger. The yogi befriends it. In that friendship, hunger reveals its wisdom. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she was starting to feel the difference between hunger as enemy and hunger as information, between eating to silence anxiety and eating to nourish. And for the first time in years, she felt her nervous system settling into something that wasn't the exhaustion masked as productivity. It was rest. Real rest. Would you rather force yourself with willpower, or redesign your environment in habits like this character is learning to do? Comment which path makes more sense to you and share this episode with someone who needs a gentler approach to change. The crisis came in January. A major client threatened to pull their account unless Sarah STM delivered a complete rebranding in 3 weeks instead of 3 months. The office transformed into a war room late nights, weekend work, catered meals of pizza and energy drinks delivered at 9 p.m. Marcos thrived it. "This is what we do," he said, donning his third hijab. "We push through." Sarah felt the old pull immediately. The adrenaline, the chaos, the permission to abandon every boundary she'd built. Sleep, optional. Meals, grab whatever is fastest. The copper bowl, there was no time for that nonsense. On the third night, she stayed until midnight, left the office with her shoulders in knots, stopped at a 24-hour convenience store. The fluorescent lights burned her eyes. She grabbed chips, candy, a sandwich that looked like it had been made days ago. At her car in the parking lot, the wrapper clinking loud in the silence. Her stomach ached, not from hunger, from betrayal. At home, she stood in her kitchen, the copper bowl sitting on the counter where she'd left it that morning, unwashed, forgotten. She picked it up, felt its weight, and something inside her cracked. She wasn't angry at herself. She was tired of the fight, tired of pretending she could white-knuckle her way through stress, tired of believing that her body was the problem instead of the life she'd built around it. The next morning, she did something she'd never done before. She went to Lhasa Corner B for work. The Tibetan woman was arranging prayer flags in the window. "You look like you haven't slept," the woman said. "I haven't. Not well." "Work," Sarah nodded. The woman poured butter tea without asking, slid the copper bowl across the counter. "In Tibet, we say the mind is like the sky. Storms come. They do not change the sky. They pass through." "I don't know how to let them pass through," Sarah admitted. "I only know how to drown in them." "Because you were taught that your value is in how much storm you can survive." The woman leaned forward. "But the yogis, they step out of the storm, not by running away, by creating stillness inside it." Sarah wrapped her hands around the bowl. The tea was warm, salty, grounding. "I don't have time for stillness. I have a deadline." "You do not need time. You need commitment." The woman tapped the copper bowl. "This bowl, every meal, even at work, especially at work. 3 breaths. That is your storm shelter." Sarah brought the bowl to the office that day, set it on her desk. Marcos noticed immediately. "You brought a bowl to work?" "I'm using it for lunch." He laughed. But when the catered pizza arrived that night, Sarah filled her copper bowl with 2 slices, sat at her desk, and breathed. 3 breaths, tasted the food, chewed slowly while her team inhaled slices standing up, screwy phones, talking over each other. She noticed something. The food didn't taste better. But her mind quieted, her shoulders dropped. And when she returned to her laptop, her thinking was clearer, sharper. By the second week of the deadline, she'd built a rhythm. Work hard, pause, breathe, eat from the bowl, rest, repeat. No heroics, no all-nighters. She left at 9 p.m. every night, slept 7 hours, returned steady. Marcos stayed until 2 a.m. Most nights, arrived exhausted, made mistakes that took hours to fix. On the final day, Sarah's section of the rebrand was done, polished. On time, Marcos wasn't. He sat at his desk, eyes hid, shaking his head. "I don't understand. You left early every night. How did you finish first?" Sarah looked at the copper bowl on her desk, now a permanent fixture between her monitor and her notebook. "It didn't push harder," she said quietly. "I stopped pushing at all." He didn't get it, but he didn't need to. That night, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with the copper bowl filled with simple miso soup. Outside, the city humid. Inside, her nervous system finally exhaled. The storm had passed through. She remained. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, Sarah returned to Dr. Chen's office for the follow-up appointment. She hadn't been weighing herself, hadn't been tracking calories, hadn't been looking through anything, but her clothes fit differently, her face looked different, and most strangely her hunger felt different, not absent, not conquered, different. Dr. Chen pulled up her labs, and her eyebrows rose. Your fasting glucose is normal. Completely normal. Your ulcer dropped almost a full point. Your cortisol is in healthy range. She looked up. Sarah, what exactly did you do? Sarah opened her mouth to explain about the copper bowl, the breathing, the Tibetan practices. He stopped. Because suddenly, sitting in that sterile office with her lab results glowing on the screen, she understood something she'd been circling around for weeks. I stopped fighting my hunger, she said slowly. I started listening to my nervous system instead. Dr. Chen tilted her head. Explain. Every diet you've ever tried treated hunger like an enemy, something to suppress, control, override with willpower. But my hunger wasn't the problem. My hunger was a symptom. The words came faster now, clearer. My nervous system was stuck in stress mode. Cortisol high, always. So ghrelin, the hunger hormone, was spiking at random times because my brain thought I was in danger. I wasn't actually hungry. I was wired. She thought about the Tibetan Yogis at 14 feet, eating twice a day without suffering. They were eating superhuman. They were eating using willpower. They were living in nervous system balance, breathing before meals, eating in peace, creating rhythm. In their bodies they responded. Ghrelin pulsed at predictable times. Leptin signaled satiety. The vagus nerve stayed regulated. Western culture teaches you as the discipline is about force, Sarah continued. But Tibetan Yogis know something different. Discipline is about environment, about rhythm, about creating conditions where the body can regulate itself. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. How did you create those conditions? I breathed before every meal. I ate in silence. I used a small bowl to create visual boundaries. I stopped eating after 7 p.m. I slept in a cold, dark room. I walked every morning before work. Sarah paused. I treated my body like it wasn't broken. Like it was just confused, stressed. And I gave it the safety it needed to remember how to regulate. The doctor leaned back. If you've been practicing medicine for 20 years, if you've given the same advice 1,000 times, eat less, move more. It fails 90% of the time. You know why? Sarah waited. Because it is your willpower model in a broken nervous system. It is like telling someone to run a marathon with a sprained ankle and just push through the pain. Dr. Chen tapped the screen showing Sarah's results. This is what happens when you heal the ankle first. Sarah left the office with her lab results, but instead of pinning them to the refrigerator like before, she folded them into her journal. They mattered, but they weren't the point anymore. The point was the moment every night when she sat at her kitchen table with the copper bowl, breathing 3 times before eating. That moment, that pause, was where the real transformation lived. Not in the weight loss or the glucose numbers, in the rewiring, in the shift from my body is my enemy to my body is my teacher. That evening, Sarah returned to a Lhasa corner. The Tibetan woman smiled when she walked in. You understand now, the woman said. Not a question. I understand that I was never fighting hunger. I was fighting my own nervous system. The woman poured tea into Sarah's copper bowl, the original one she'd given her months ago. In our monasteries, young monks learn this first. The body is wise. The mind is loud. The practice is learning which one to listen to. Sarah wrapped her hands around the bowl, felt its familiar weight, its warmth. It was never about willpower. No, the woman agreed. It was always about awareness. Friendship. Time. Sarah drank her tea slowly, letting the salt and butter coat her tongue, feeling her nervous system settle into the rhythm it had been learning for weeks. She realized this wasn't an ending. This was just the beginning of understanding how deeply she had misunderstood everything. The secret wasn't hidden in Tibet. It was hidden in her own body, waiting for her to stop shouting and start listening. 8 months later, Sarah stood in her apartment kitchen on a Sunday morning, the copper bowl in her hands, steam rising from the butter tea she'd learned to make herself. Sunlight filtered through the window she now kept open, even in winter cold air, Tibetan style, to signal a carefulness to her circadian rhythm. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Family dinner next week. Please tell me you're not bringing that weird bowl again. Sarah smiled. She was absolutely bringing the bowl. Emma, despite her protests, had started asking questions. Why do you eat so slow? Why do you leave food on your plate? How are you never hungry anymore? Because I'm not hungry anymore, Sarah had wanted to say. Not the way I used to be, but explaining that took time. Emma wasn't ready. Not yet. Marcus had been easier to convince, but only because his body had forced the conversation. 2 months after the rebrand deadline, he ended up in the air with chest pains. Not a heart attack, panic attack, high cortisol, burnout. The doctor horas vão clear, reduce stress, sleep more, eat better. He decommitted Sarah esse desk the following week, sheepish. So, that breathing thing you do, does it actually work? Now he kept a small bowl on his desk, not copper, just a cereal bowl from home. But he used it. Breed B for lunch. At slower. Left at 6 p.m. Most nights, he didn't talk about it much. But Sarah noticed him noticing her the way she moved through the office with less urgency, less frenzy, more presence. You seem like you aged backward, he said one afternoon. Sarah laughed. I just stopped aging forward so fast. Her father had said something similar at Easter. You look healthy, really healthy, not Nike. Diet healthy, Nike rested. I am rested, Sarah had replied. It was true. 7 hours of sleep every night. Dark room. No screens after 9 p.m. Morning walks before breakfast. These weren't sacrifices anymore. They were non-negotiables. The architecture of her life. The second lab appointment with Dr. Chen had been 6 months in. All markers normal. Weight stabilized not at some unrealistic goal weight, but at a place her body seemed content to stay. No restriction, no hunger, just rhythm. I'm going to start referring other patients to you, Dr. Chen had joked. But she wasn't entirely joking. What you've done reprogramming your nervous system, healing your relationship with food, this is what I wish I could prescribe. You can, Sarah said. It's just not a pill. Now, standing in her kitchen with the copper bowl, Sarah thought about what had actually changed. Not just her body, not just her labs, but her entire understanding of what transformation meant. She'd spent years believing change required force, deprivation, suffering, the grind. And when that failed, when she inevitably broke, gave up, she'd believed the failure was hers. Lack of discipline, weak will. But the Tibetan approach had taught her something radical. The body isn't a machine to be controlled. It is an ecosystem to be balanced. Em balance doesn't come from force. It comes from rhythm, environment, awareness, in time. The yogis at 14 feet weren't superhuman. They were just living in alignment with their biology instead of at war with it. Sarah poured her tea, sat at her small kitchen table, the same table where she'd eaten stressed and distracted for years, and breathed. 3 slow breaths. The copper bowl warm in her hands. Her hunger appeared right on schedule. 8 a.m. Like clockwork. Not frantic, not desperate. Just a gentle signal. Time to nourish. She ate oatmeal with walnuts and sliced apple. Chewed slowly. Tasted everything. And when she was full, truly full, with her leptin signaling satiety, her vagus nerve calm, she stopped. Left to bite the bowl. Not out of discipline, out of satisfaction. This was the third big shift she'd discovered, the one that still surprised her. When the nervous system is regulated, the body knows when to stop. It does not need rules. It has wisdom. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message from a woman she didn't know. Hi Sarah, Dr. Chen gave me your name. I've been struggling with stress eating for years. Could we grab coffee sometime? I'd love to hear about what worked for you. Sarah stared at the message. A year ago, she would have felt like a fraud. Who was she to give advice? She was still figuring it out herself. But now she understood. She didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be a few steps ahead. Willing to share the path. She typed back. Yes, let us meet at Losa Corner. There is a Tibetan woman there who changed my life. Enl bring an extra bowl. That afternoon, Sarah walked through the park near her apartment, the same park she used to hash through on her way to nowhere important. Now she walked slowly. Noticed the light through the trees, watched an elderly couple practicing Tai Chi near the fountain, their movements synchronized, their breathing visible in the cold air. She thought about the yogi from the documentary, the one who held the copper bowl. He said, "We do not fight the body. We listen, we befriend." For years, Sarah had been at war. The war had nearly killed her, not literally, but slowly, through stress, inflammation, exhaustion, the quiet erosion of joy. But now she and her body were on the same side. Partners, friends. That friendship built through small rituals, through the copper bowl, through breathing before eating, through honoring hunger, a fullness. That friendship had given her back her life. Not a perfect life, not a life without stress or challenge, but a life where she could meet those challenges from a place of regulation instead of depletion, where her body was a source of wisdom instead of shame. She returned home as the sun set, filled the copper bowl one more time with evening watering lemon, and sat in the quiet of her apartment. The same apartment, but different. Everything was different, because she was different. In the change, the real change hadn't come from willpower. It had come from finally learning to listen. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel, tell us which country you watch from, and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story. 8 months later, Sarah stood in her kitchen on a Sunday morning, the copper bowl in her hands, steam rising from butter tea she'd learned to make herself. Cold air flowed through the window, Tibetan-style temperature exposure to wake her circadian rhythm naturally. Her phone buzzed. "Emma, family dinner next week. Are you bringing the bowl again?" Sarah smiled. "Absolutely." Emma, despite her protests, had started asking questions. "How are you never hungry anymore?" "Because I'm not fighting my hunger anymore," Sarah thought. "I'm listening to it." Marcos had been easy until convinced, but only after landing in the air with a panic attack 2 months after the rebrand deadline. The doctor's prescription was clear: reduce stress, sleep more, and mindfully. He appeared at Sarah's desk the following week, sheepish. "That breathing thing you do, does it work?" Now he kept a bowl on his desk. "Breathe beef for lunch. Left at 6 p.m. most nights." He didn't talk about it much, but Sarah noticed him noticing her, the way she moved through chaos with less urgency, more presence. "You aged backward," he said one afternoon. Sarah laughed. "I just stopped aging forward so fast." The 6-month lab results with Dr. Chen had confirmed it. All markers normal, weight stabilized, no restriction, no hunger panics, just rhythm. "I want to refer patients to you," Dr. Chen had said, half joking. "What you've done healing your nervous system, this should be the standard treatment." "It can be," Sarah replied. "It's just not a pill." Now, sitting at her table with the copper bowl, Sarah thought about what had truly changed. Not just her body, her entire understanding of transformation. She'd spent years believing change required force, suffering, the grind. When that failed, she blamed herself. Weak will, no discipline. But the Tibetan Yogis had shown her something radical. The body isn't a machine to control. It is an ecosystem to balance. Imbalance doesn't come from force, it comes from rhythm, environment, awareness, and time. The yogis at 14 feet weren't the superhuman. They simply lived the alignment with their biology instead of at war with it. Sarah S. hunger appeared at 8 a.m. Gentle and predictable, not desperate. Just a signal, time to nourish. She ate oatmeal with walnuts, chewed slowly. When she was full, truly full, leptin signaling, vagus nerve calm, she stopped. Left to bite see the bowl. Not from discipline, from satisfaction. This was the final revelation. When the nervous system regulates, the body knows when to stop. It does not need rules. It has wisdom. Her phone buzzed. A stranger. Hi Sarah, Dr. Chen gave me your name. Evie struggled with stress eating for years. Could we talk? A year ago, Sarah would have felt like a fraud. Now she understood. She didn't need perfection, just willingness to share the path. She typed back. Yes, meet me at Los Corner there is a Tibetan tea house there. Yanieli bring an extra bowl. That afternoon, Sarah walked through the park, the same one she used to hash through. Now she walked slowly, noticed night through trees, watched elderly people practicing Tai Chi, their breathing visible in cold air, their movements synchronized with something invisible but utterly real. She thought about the yogi from the documentary, Hoji his copper bowl. We do not fight the body. We listen, we befriend. For years, Sarah had been at war. The war had nearly destroyed her slowly, through stress, inflammation, exhaustion, and the quiet erosion of joy. Now she and her body were allies, partners, friends. That friendship built through the copper bowl, through breathing before eating, through honoring hunger and fullness had given her back her life. Not a perfect life, but a life where she could meet challenges from regulation instead of depletion, where her body was wisdom instead of shame. She returned home at sunset, filled the copper bowl with evening watering lemon, and sat in her quiet apartment. The same space, but different. Everything was different, because she was different. The change had didn't come from willpower. It had come from finally learning to listen. In that listening, discovering that her body had been speaking truth all along, she'd just been too wired, too frightened, too conditioned to hear it. The copper bowl sat on her table, worn now from months of oozy, its surface developing a patina that marked chimney transformation. It was just a bowl, simple copper, nothing magical, but it had become a symbol of something profound, the space between craving and action, the pause where awareness lives. The moment where she could choose friendship over war. In the choice, repeated daily for 8 months, she had found what every diet she had promised but never delivered: peace with food, trust in her body, in the quiet confidence that came from living rhythm instead of chaos. She lifted the bowl one moritime, breathed 3 slow breaths, and whispered a gratitude the Tibetan woman had taught her. Thank you to this body for carrying me, for teaching me, for never giving up, even when I gave up on it. Outside, the city moved at its frantic pace. Inside, her nervous system moved at a different frequency, calm, steady, regulated. Finally home. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel, tell us which until watch from, and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story.